member of several select committees and is chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Hindus. Lord Dolar Popert, immediately to the left of the chairman, will be saying no to the question posed. He is a minister in the House of Lords with responsibilities for transport and business, and founder of the Conservative Friends of India. He is also a trade envoy to Uganda and Rwanda. Beside him, to his left, is Stephen Palm, and he will be teaming up with him. He is a Labour MP for Ealing North, which too has a large section of Indian extraction people as voters. He's also Shadow Minister for Northern Ireland. So, I would now invite the four speakers to set out their respective cases, taking 5 to 10 minutes, and thereafter we will move on to questions. So I now call upon Lord Hamilton to speak first.
Ladies and gentlemen, I very much welcome you all here this evening. You'll be very glad to hear that I'm not advocating that India should join with Pakistan, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka into a political union pooling your respective sovereignty. And you're all on the same continent, for heaven's sake. And that is the same argument that is produced as to why we should remain in Europe. That somehow, because we are next door to this continent, that therefore we should all join and pool our sovereignty and be in a single federal Europe. And that's not what I'm advocating for India, and it's certainly not what I'm advocating for the United Kingdom. Since the European Union has set up, life has changed quite dramatically across the world. There are a whole mass of emerging economies, of which India is a very, very serious player. You have a middle class of 200 million people. We should be doing much more business with India than we are today. But we can't do that. We can't sign up a trade treaty with India. Why? Because trade is what's known as an EU competence. It means that they control trade. And I have to say that an EU trade deal with India is almost completely out of question. So it doesn't suit Britain, it does not suit India that we are in the EU. And we have to get out of the EU if we're going to tie up a bilateral trade deal with India, which I'm absolutely certain we could do. Our links with India are incredibly strong. We go back to the time of empire. We also have many very, very successful Indians working in this country, and we have a number of very, very successful Indians from India who are investing in our country. So we have all the ties that are there to tie up a bilateral treaty with India, which is something that the EU today is incapable of doing. We've got to remember that when the EU says, we're so big, everybody wants to do business with us. But to date, the EU has not tied up a trade treaty with the United States of America, Japan, China, India. All the biggest economies in the world, they actually haven't got a trade treaty with. And the reason for that is this is extremely difficult to tie up a trade treaty that is acceptable to all 28 nations in the EU. And that's why we need to get back control of our trade and start to move out from this completely outdated economic model, which is the EU today. Only the EU could have set up the Eurozone. The Eurozone is an abject disaster. It is impoverishing people in the southern states of Europe. Greece is virtually bankrupt. The youth unemployment in Greece and in Spain is about 50%. It's about 35% in Italy. The damage which it is doing to the social fabric of Europe is absolutely appalling. And as we see across Europe now, very much as a result of the economic impoverishment of these countries is the emergence of extremist parties in many, combined with the movement of people, is actually creating extremism in many of these parts of Europe today. So it's very important that we get out of the EU, that we start to recognise that the future for this country as a trading nation lies with all the new economies that are emerging around the world. And we can only tie up sensible deals and trade with these countries if we pull out of the EU and take control of our own futures.
Thank you, Lord Hamilton. He's touched on an important aspect, which is trade, and this is one of the reasons why we are here today. An argument put forward by the Brexit camp has been that if there's any loss accruing from an exit from the European Union, that would be compensated by free trade agreements with the United States, with India, even China. So that's something that we'll expand upon a bit later. I'll be failing in my duties if I did not acknowledge the many distinguished people present here today, but I'd like to point to you one such person, and he is Lord Attlee, who's here with us, and welcome to you, sir, for joining us today. Apart from being a distinguished person in his own right, he happens to be the grandson of the man who granted independence to India. And now I invite Lord Popper to respond to Lord Hamilton.
Thank you, Ashish. Thank you for introduction. It was a little exaggerated because I'm no longer Minister of Crown for Business and Transport. Yes, I continue to be a trade envoy. I continue to be a whip in the House of Lords. Let me start the benefits we've had by being members of the European Union for the last 44 years. And I recall in 1972 when the Prime Minister took us to the European Union, we were the 7th country to join the common market. And at that time, UK was ranked as a third world country, more or less, to the bottom of the 7 countries, including Italy, France, Germany, and others. And today we rank number 1 in the European Union, we rank number 1 in the G20. And all these benefits we received is because of our membership of the European Union. We've actually raised our living standards ever since. We've done better in business, we've done better in many other areas, in the soft power as well, by being members of the European Union. And yes, of course, we have greater cooperation on climate change, on foreign policy, on defense policy. It's a fantastic marriage of convenience. It's lasted 44 years, and we shouldn't go through the divorce that my noble friend Lord Hamilton is suggesting. I believe we are strong, safer, and better off in Europe. And look at the cost if we, in case, decide to have an exit from the European Union. It will be a huge cost. We'll be shrinking our economy. And if we shrink our economy, our tax receipt will drop, which should have a direct effect on our national health service, on our education, on our transport infrastructure investment, on our welfare and so forth. So I think it's important we remain. I will come back, I will certainly cover the main topic of this debate on India as well. Now India, UK is the 3rd largest foreign direct investment in this country. Why do they invest here? Why did Jaguar Land Rover, Tata's, all are coming, and more companies from India wants to come here? They have appetite to do more business with us. This is a great country to do business. Ease of doing business is much easier. Our corporation tax rate is much lower. We are transparent, we are democratic, we have a strong rule of law, and of course are very transparent as well. But most important, the commonality between India and UK. Our history goes back, and our culture goes back many years. The commonality of English as a language. Business is now done. English has become an international language for business. So all these things. But most important reason why some of the Indian companies want to come to the UK. Why is it that they're not going to Germany or France? We have the highest inward investment than the other 27 countries put together. The main reason is that we are open economy, and we are open to the single market of the European Union. And that helps India, that helps employment here. By being members of the European Union, we've got about 3.5 million jobs. That is because of trade that we do with the European Union. Our current trade is around £220 billion, some 45% export to the European Union. What does India need to achieve apart from training and grow? In fact, Modi launched early this year was there made in India. He wants to manufacture goods there with regional office here so we can export from this end to the rest of the world. So, and of course, the European Union has a market of about 500 million customers that India will benefit. And we also help, one of the things the European Union has done is help to standardize our products that we manufacture, which has helped the Indian economy to standardize their products so they can sell abroad as well. So it's important they are part of Europe. It's in the interest of India, Prime Minister Modi, the President of the United States, the Prime Minister of Canada, Trudeau, the Australian Prime Minister, the IMF, the CBI, the Archbishop of Canterbury, you name it, everybody is in favor of us staying in the European Union. Our trade with India is 17 billion at the moment. We hope to double that by 2020. Our Prime Minister Cameron has been there 4 times, once as the leader of the opposition. The highest number of overseas trips is made except Brussels. So it is quite vital for India that we are part of that large family of the European Union. Thank you.
Bob Blackman, please.
Well, thank you, Ashish, and thank you to Lord Hamilton Archie for giving that excellent rendition. And with respect, Donna, my constituents, who I'm proud to have you in Harrow East, I think you're wrong. Do you know, in 1975, it was almost the first vote I ever cast, was to vote in favour of Britain remaining a member of the European Economic Community. We were then one of 9 countries. We joined for trade and commerce. But in those years, since 1975, this organisation has morphed from being an economic community to being a political club. And what an expensive political club it is. We can argue about the figures. The figures are £350 million going to the EU every week. After rebate, it's 270 million, which works out as £38.5 million per day. Now, there will be people that say it's worth paying. We are the 5th biggest economy in the world. But surely it is right that we subsidise the Greece, Spain, Portugal, the countries of the Eastern Europe. I say, wouldn't it be better for us as a country to have that money within our coffers to decide how we want to spend it, rather than depending on the unelected, incompetent European Commission who determine what they're going to do with our money? They produce the laws that they then inflict upon us. They produce the rules and regulations that we then have to pass into statute in this country. And that restricts our ability to be internationalist. And so the people that say, on the Remain side, have been spreading this fear, uncertainty and doubt. Let us look at the markets. 500 million people in Europe, in the European Union. 2.2 billion people in the Commonwealth. I'd rather be trading with and have the markets of 2.2 billion people than restrict ourselves to 500 million. Equally, the issue about trade with the European Union is this. Only 3 out of every 20 companies in the UK does any business at all with the European Union. But every single company in the UK has to conform to the rules and regulations as determined by Brussels. That cannot be good for business, it's not good for trade. We have a huge imbalance in our trade relationship with Europe. We import vast amounts of goods and services from the European Union, yet we get little in the way of exports. Now you can argue, well, that's up to business, we should be doing more. And then we come to the issues that affect India in particular. And we cannot avoid the key issue of the free movement of labour. The reality is, if someone in New Delhi, Ahmedabad, Pune, wherever, wants to come to this country, They have to go and get a visa form, produce evidence that they have finances in their bank, get references, prove they can speak English, prove that they've got the qualifications to come and work in this country, and they may even then be rejected for their visa. But if someone wakes up in Bulgaria, Romania, Poland, or anywhere else in the European Union, they just say, I'll get on the train and arrive. And we cannot stop them coming. Now, I am not someone who says we don't want immigration. Immigration has been brilliant for this country, and it must remain so. But we should be able to control our borders and determine who comes here. And our historic relations with the Commonwealth that mean that for India, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, the West Indies, all of those great countries, those people that have historical ties with this country should have the ability to come here and work on the same basis as anyone else from Europe. We do not have that capacity. So the key is that by leaving the European Union, we will then have control over our borders and control who comes here and who doesn't. We'll be able to plan our public services, be they schools, be they the health service, be our housing, be our economy. We'll be able to control it and we'll be able to plan for it. And the other fundamental issue that I think is important in this debate is on the 23rd of June, the British people have a chance to decide for their future, our children, grandchildren, because we only get a vote every 40 or 50 years on this particular issue. It is a vital vote that matters. So I think we should be saying, yes, there will be an economic hiccup. There will be an economic hiccup because the markets like stability. They don't want change. They would much rather have certainty. And with Brexit, there is a degree of uncertainty. However, even the most pessimistic forecasters say that on Brexit, there'll be an economic hiccup. We will negotiate our way on our trade relationships with Europe and with other countries very quickly. And very quickly, economic growth will be restored to this country, and we will grow faster and better as a result of being free of the shackles of Brussels. So I'm hoping that when we wake up on the 24th of June, at the end of all this, that the British people will embrace internationalism, as we always have done. Embrace the opportunity, and not be fed on this diet of fear, uncertainty and doubt. What we do have to say is there's a bold, bright future. It's outside the European Union, and Britain being restored to the great nation it has been and will be once again.
Thank you very much indeed. Bob Blackman touched on immigration, which is also another subject we'll elaborate on more specifically linked to India a bit later. So you've heard two speakers from the yes side, and now we'll have the second speaker from the no side, Stephen Pound.
Thank you very, very much indeed, Ashley. My lords, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Ashley, for organising this extremely timely and very, very relevant and important meeting tonight. But I seem to have wandered into a different meeting. I haven't heard much about India. What I've heard is a great deal about this sort of frothing paranoia about words like shackles. I have to say, Bob, with the greatest respect, I think this is rather patronising, almost insulting to an Indian audience. We're here to talk about India, whether it would be better or post-Brexit. We're not here to talk about the Greek economy. We're not here to talk about the Eurozone. We're actually here to talk about and to respect those people who are here tonight to talk about India and its bilateral with the United Kingdom and with the European Union. So can we just go back to first principles? And I think, having said that, I think we'd almost turn the question on its head, because I think the United Kingdom's bilateral with India would suffer grievously were we to take the insane step of leaving the European Union. But you know what? India, in the short term, would suffer. In the long term, it wouldn't. Because India adapts. India is capable of changing. India makes what it can sell. It doesn't sell what it can make, as they do in China. And never forget Prime Minister Narendra Modi's statement, do you remember, only a few months ago, if there's any entry point into the European Union, that point should be the United Kingdom. India is actually doing the United Kingdom a considerable favour by bringing so much investment. Like when you see Ratan Tata bringing Tata Industries in my own constituency in Greenford, Tetley tea, wonderful product, magnificent product, but we weren't selling enough. We weren't competitive enough. We weren't actually selling the product out there. Tata come in, and now tea of the highest and the finest quality where you can get it. And I have to say, the national drink of India, quite rightly, with respect to Karanvila Moria, it is. And when you look at what Ratan Tata Industries have done in respect of Jaguar Land Rover, so we're actually beginning a great favour. But there's a couple of really, really fundamental errors that are being promulgated here. Somebody, somewhere, I hope the present company accepted, are almost implying that being a member of the European Union means that you cannot trade with other countries. You cannot trade, for example, with Commonwealth countries. The EU Commonwealth trade has been increasing exponentially. It's got a 163% increase in the last 2 years. And that EU-India trade agreement is all bar signed by the last dot and tittle. We've actually got an agreement with Pakistan, with Bangladesh, and to refer to something we said earlier on, with the Caribbean. It is not an either-or. It is both. And it is massively beneficial to this country to have access to that huge market out there and to negotiate and trade with India, one of the great growing economies of the world. Now, do you, in all honesty, ladies and gentlemen, think that even those close, sentimental ties, those ties which are very, very close between our nations, do you think a hard-headed, possibly Gujarati businessman looking at the future would say, well, it would cost me money to trade outside the EU, but because of familiarity with dear old England, I think we'll do that. Well, I have to say, some people might, but the majority wouldn't, because India is a nation of businessmen and women. India is also a federal nation. So when people start talking about the horrors of a federal Europe, look at India. What do you think India is? India is a federation of states which were, not that long ago, independent and now coming together, just as the United States is a federal organisation, extremely successful. So don't be terrified of the idea of a federal European Union. But I think we actually need to get it back to first principles here. India would survive if the United Kingdom left the European Union. India might even thrive. I don't know. They would find new friends because that's what they do. Look at the moment in South Africa, where the biggest, by far, the biggest industrial conglomerate is the Gupta family in South Africa. Look what they're achieving. Look what the Madhanis do. Look where they have succeeded. The United Kingdom out of Europe will be ruinous for the United Kingdom, but it will not cause a great deal of loss of sea in India. Therefore, I think we have to realise the realities of the situation. 20 years ago, when I founded the Labour Friends of India, the terms of trade were very much in favour of the United Kingdom. We did more trade. I think we were something like the third biggest trading partner with India, and India was about the 7th or 8th biggest trading partner with us. It's now turned around. The Indian economy has grown, access to this country has increased, and we have all benefited from it. I think in this country we have to sometimes realise that we are not in any way anymore doing India any favours. Those days have long gone. Long, long gone. In many ways, India is doing us favours. And I think for us to turn our backs on the rest of Europe and turn our backs on the ability to be at that table, at that negotiating table, at that trading desk, on that trading floor with India would be an act of absolute insanity. Therefore, Ashish, your question was a perfectly simple one. Would India be better off or worse off if the United Kingdom left the European Union? I think India would carry on doing what India does best, succeeding, growing, enhancing its reputation and selling throughout the world. This country, oh no, we would suffer terribly. Let's stay in the European Union. Let's stay trading with the Commonwealth. Let's stay trading with the nations of the earth. And let's stay trading with our good friends, our former family, and still our brothers and sisters and cousins, the great federal nation of India. Thank you.
Thank you once again. I'd like to take a couple of reactions, if I may, at this point, to the 4 speeches that you've heard before we move on to the questions. So, could I have a reaction from, anyway, yes, Charles Markwood.
Yes, I want to react to what Lord Hamilton had to say. superficially attractive, but the moment you dig a little deeper, you realise how fallacious it is. The notion that any trade deal to be contracted between any two countries is easy is, of course, entirely wrong, particularly where the two partners may be democracies. For example, is there a trade deal between the US and Japan? Is there a trade deal, for that matter, between Japan and India? So the idea that we can somehow free ourselves from the shackles of Europe, to use the phrase that was used, and then easily slip into trade deals with India and various other countries, it seems to me, is entirely mistaken. And not more so, and not least for this particular reason. And these are statistics that I learned a few days ago. The civil service in 1979 was 620,000 strong. It is now 400,000 strong. The expertise that we had in negotiating free trade deals has gone to Europe, because it is now Europe that negotiates trade deals and from which we benefit. Were we to leave, we would have to do three things. We would have to negotiate the terms of our departure from the EU, a free trade deal with Europe, and additionally free trade deals around the world, with a civil service that is far less powerful and better resource than it was previously, and without the expertise, facing, I might add, administrations that are highly expert and well-resourced in these particular fields, with very little to offer. And by the way, these three things have to happen simultaneously. Otherwise, there will be a massive rupture. So, for that reason, or rather, that is my reaction to what Lord Hamilton has to say. And then just briefly my reaction to what Lord Blackman has to say about immigration. Well, it's quite simply this. I'm afraid to say what you said was entirely misleading, because the quitters, as we know, wish to reduce immigration down to 100,000 persons a year. That is approximately half the immigration from third countries, non-EU countries. So the idea that by leaving the European Union there will be an easier ride for immigrants from this Indian subcontinent, I'm afraid, is just completely wrong. That's my reaction. It's enough I've said, I think, what I can say.
So that was clearly